I just want to welcome everyone to our discussion today. I'm Jake Spear with the State Library, and we have several people from the State Library also on with us today. And also happy to have Holly and Mike Shantz from Overdrive have joined us today as well. So they'll be able to answer any questions you may have, and State Library staff will be able to as well. If you could please mute yourself if you haven't already. I think we've muted most people, but you're able to unmute yourself if you have questions. We'll go ahead. We have a very good attendance here today, so I'm happy for you for that, and that people are interested in this opportunity and able to learn more about it. So just to start at the beginning, currently there are two large Overdrive consortiums in Indiana. The EIDC, which is the one affiliated with Evergreen, and it serves a little over 100 libraries, and then the IDVC, which serves a little over 60 libraries. And beginning this summer, I had some conversations with Jesse Butts at Porter County and Stephanie Murphy at New Carlisle, and talking about potential for having one consortium in Indiana. Mike Shantz we had discussed with him at Overdrive that Overdrive was open to having one consortium that served all Indiana libraries, and the benefits that this would have for patrons, that they would have more things to have access to, that there would be shorter holds list, and just a better collaboration among libraries, and also the potential for coordination of purchasing, as far as winnowing down holds lists, looking at the whole state and making decisions collectively that benefit our patrons. There also was the issue of currently libraries in Indiana, the consortiums, and then there's also, I should mention, a few other libraries outside of the IDVC and EIDC that either have a small consortium or are on their own collecting ebooks through Overdrive. And collectively, everyone is paying a separate, or in the EIDC or IDVC, paying consortium fees. And so there's the potential for having one consortium that the State Library could pay the platform fee and using LSTA funds, and it would save the state collectively a lot of money. It would give us more buying power, and also allow our patrons to have a better experience. So, we've had a couple different discussions. So you may, if you are on this call, you may have been part of the EIDVC or IDVC discussion, or just have heard about it. So this is repeating some of that same information. But we've been building this kind of grassroots, try to keep talking to people and kind of build awareness, answer questions, and keep moving forward. And so this is the latest installment of a discussion about a potential Overdrive consortium, or not even potential, it is an Overdrive consortium in Indiana that libraries have the ability to join. And so I'll just go over some of the basics, the reason why, and then be able to answer any questions that you have. And also, as I mentioned, we have folks from Overdrive here, Mike Shantz and Holly, to answer questions as well. And so I'll just go through this slide deck quickly. So, currently the status quo, things are generally pretty good. Like I said, libraries are buying things from Overdrive. I know some are also buying things from Hoopla and providing it to patrons, and it's working. Currently, a third of the annual Overdrive goes to your platform fee. And then also the concerns about the jump in magazine subscription costs. As I mentioned earlier, there is multiple consortiums in Indiana that may be confusing or unintuitive for patrons. And then there are smaller libraries that maybe are working directly with Overdrive and maybe aren't taking a full advantage of what they could be offering their patrons. And also, I put this last bullet point that the state funding can't be put towards one consortium above all others. Earlier this year, we were discussing, we had the rescue funds, and we had a lot of federal funds, and we talked about how it would be nice is to buy a lot of ebooks that would benefit, anyone in the state. And there really isn't a consortium or a platform that could easily be done. And so it's a lesser reason to do this, but it was a thing going forward, that the state could potentially use federal or state funds to buy additional titles for this consortium. Within the EIDC, which is the Evergreen, and the IDCC, there are currently, there's no collection development policy or a team to kind of work together to make any type of even baseline decisions. And there's also content credit that could be used. Some libraries, small libraries may have this credit with Overdrive. They get overwhelmed, they don't have a lot of staff, and there are other priorities, and that credit goes unspent, which is a real problem. And libraries, as I said, don't have the bandwidth to select materials. So as you see at the bottom of our slide, one of the solutions is to form a statewide Overdrive consortium, like not many, but other states have done. And we will call ours the Indiana Digital Library, or IDL. And this would replace the EIDC and the IDBC and have one consortium. It also would be eligible for other libraries to join, even if you are not part of the consortium. The one caveat is libraries that serve the very large libraries are not eligible. So some of the benefits to having a statewide consortium, as I had mentioned, the collection development policy, this would be a voluntary thing that if you wanted to serve on it, and also if you wanted to allocate your money to this committee, you could, either part of it or all of it. Also, better ability to negotiate pricing and take advantage of concurrent checkout licenses. And also, as I mentioned, state funds are contributed to the consortium. The state library will pay the $30,000 platform fee using LSTA funds. This is the current collection management, or current tier as far as cost. As you can see, currently Evergreen, Indiana pays $82,000 alone. And so there is the potential to pay much less in platform fee, and all the monies that all the funds that libraries pay would go directly to collection, and none would go to supporting the platform fee because the state would be covering that. And so this is a proposed model that you would keep the same amount of content credit for individual purchases. Money that would have gone toward the platform fee goes to the consortium management team to purchase high demand materials. If you don't want to make the purchases, you can contribute all your content credit towards the content management team. And so this could be a big win for patrons and libraries. And so the collection management team, it's a 6 to 12 member librarians who volunteer for 1 or 2 months to do the following things: to purchase high interest titles, purchase additional copies of high hold items, check for holds on weeded titles to purchase, delete or move holds on titles that cannot be repurchased, make sure the consortium has all the best sellers, renew the magazine subscription, meet annually to review the workflow and guidelines, and take advantage of concurrent use titles. And this would be outside of the state library. This would be a volunteer team that's kind of similar to some of the consortium, some of the teams or committees that are under Evergreen, Indiana. It would not be affiliated with that, but we have great teams that make decisions and do work that is separate from state library. Stephanie Murphy from New Carlisle is coordinating that. I'll have her email address later if you would like to serve on the committee or have interest in it. She would be able to provide more information.
Jake, can we go back to the slide just previous to this one real quick? I just noticed right here, there are just 3 tiers that are mentioned in this model. There are some additional tiers in case anybody was looking at that and saying, oh no, my library doesn't fit into that. So.
Oh, right, because the current tiers go up to 150,000 people. The libraries that serve 150,000. Thank you for that, Ruth. Mm-hmm. As I mentioned, membership is open to any Indiana public library that serves less than 150,000. And if you are willing to do the following, support and adhere to the purpose and policies, pay any required fees and ongoing cost Overdrive, and accept Overdrive's terms, spend the content by November 1 of each year, and share their advantage titles with the consortium. And you see that side note, that is something that has come up in the past, is that your patrons will still have holds priority on any titles shared immediately with the consortium. Waiting 6 months to share advantage title on a 12-month metered access title is just not efficient. These are some of the questions that we've received that Keith has put together. Can we still purchase cost per use or lucky day titles? Yes, nothing about your local purchasing decisions needs to change. Will we be able to keep everything that we have purchased already? And yes, the answer to that is yes. Will our patrons see any disruptions if we join a new consortium? Very minimal. Patron holds and checkout should stick, and then they will need to log back in once the switchover is complete, so they wouldn't need to re-sign in if you join and once the switchover is completed by Overdrive. And we mentioned the concurrent checkout, and I think I'm going to have Keith talk about this briefly if Keith, you're available, but the concurrent checkout titles, or Ruth, if you would like to. But okay,
yeah,
go ahead. Thanks.
Yeah. So it's kind of conceptually difficult, and this isn't available for every titles, but one of the options of purchase models that Overdrive has is like if you see, for example, in this picture here, it's got a multiple access 100 checkout concurrent users. So if you have a very high holds list, titles like this for $95, it's not quite twice as much as a one cost one use title, but it would immediately be able to scythe through 100 of the holds that you've currently got. Typically for consortiums, you would look at that and say, well, who's going to want to pay almost twice as much for something that isn't going to stick around indefinitely? But this is, when you have a larger consortium, this is one of the things that you can take advantage of, for kind of these alternate access models that provide and with a team that's kind of continually overlooking, it's just a good way to spend money quickly here. Not quickly, but efficiently.
And these should not be confused with simultaneous use, even though concurrent and simultaneous sometimes do get confused with one another. It's another type of license.
Yeah,
that's really all there is to say about that.
Yeah, I think that's I think that about covers it there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Keith. I appreciate it. And so, the next steps for libraries that are interested would be to complete the form that I sent to you and submit it to Overdrive by January 1. As I mentioned, that's kind of a short turnaround, as I mentioned in the email. If you need more time, you could submit it by the end of January. If you submit it earlier, it helps Overdrive kind of know who's joining and start building this, because they can't just turn it on. They need to start building this consortium and pulling in everything. But I understand that, it is December 10th already. You may need more time. And so we at least could give you to the end of January to complete that. If you're interested in serving on the Collection Development Committee, you can contact Stephanie Murphy at New Carlisle and put her email there. Before we open it up for questions, I wanted to open it up if Mike or Holly from Overdrive, if you'd like to unmute yourself, if you have anything to say before we kind of get into the questions. I'll just say I appreciate Mike Shantz's his flexibility in working with us. He's been very helpful, and also to Jesse Butts and to Stephanie Murphy as well, because they've been very helpful in moving this forward. We've also worked with the EIDC, and I know that Jesse and Stephanie have worked with the IDDC members to kind of talk this through and get information out. And we've also shared this with the e-resources committee and had a lot of good discussions around this. I know that there are questions and maybe some concerns, and hopefully we can address them. I do think this is something that, if you take that kind of, not even a leap of faith, but if you kind of, with good confidence that we'll make this work, we'll work it through, there may be a few bumps if we create a new consortium like this, but I think overall it would mean less dollars by public libraries going towards platform fees, and also the potential for your patrons to be able to access many more ebooks and other resources through this consortium. And it's really going to benefit public libraries and patrons, and be a real thing that we can be proud of once we get this up and going. So Mike or Holly, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I would like to add a few things before we get into questions. Questions are flowing like crazy right now. And with questions, I think we should probably try to keep them organized. And maybe Jake, you can maybe read or someone in your staff
Sure.
can actually read the questions to us. Otherwise, because there's probably 25 questions already flowing. So I think it's better for you guys to coordinate the questions, okay?
Sure, Mike.
I did want to make 2 comments from the slides before we started doing the questions, and then 1 overall comment. So one thing about the slides that didn't mention was, okay, so the content it's all going to content. You're paying the same amount of money that you used to, but it's all going to content. 2/3 of that is going to Advantage, as the slides did say. But one thing they didn't mention is one of the benefits with this Advantage, the content that you purchase, or the content you purchase extra over and above that, which you can purchase content over and above that, and again, everybody gets to share that content, it goes to your ownership. That's one of the big differences. All the content in the past went to the consortium ownership. So the 2/3 will now go to your ownership, which is another benefit to the libraries. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that. So that's a huge benefit that you actually own the content you're picking, versus right now you've been picking content, but you don't own that content. So the other thing I wanted to say, this last slide. So as far as the short notice of getting these forms in, I just want to make sure you know, this is no different. All you're doing is moving from one consortium to another, which is basically the same consortium. I mean, it's just the name of the consortium is changing. The terms of the agreement, other than the fact that you actually don't have to pay system fees, are all the same terms that you already agreed to, that you already have right now. They're already in place. So I would hope that would make it a lot easier for you to agree to the terms, because you already agreed to all the terms. So I just wanted to say that real quick. And just as one overall thing before we get into questions, I do think this is going to be very positive. I think that the synergies that you guys have coming together are going to be very good, especially the fact that you can start managing, like one of those slides was talking about different use models. It's hard when you don't have the money going into a shared pool, which 1/3 of these monies go into a shared pool, to take advantage of those synergies of the different use models, which the publishers are the ones that allow the different use models. Having a committee that takes 1/3 of the funds into that committee pool really allows you to benefit from the different user models. So that slide was really well done, in that it showed that, but just that was one example of many different user models, and user models that will continue to evolve. And you guys will be very prime in being able to take advantage of those new and existing user models. And I lied. I do want to say one more thing. I'm very excited that Holly, who is your new representative for the state of Indiana, is on this call. And I just want to make sure that we get a chance to introduce her, and anybody would like to reach out to her, she's there to answer any further questions past this call, okay?
Hi, I'll just say a quick hello. I know I've emailed with some of you about various things, a lot of you about this consortium merger. So it's nice to meet all of you. And I look forward to us digging into all these questions that are coming in the chat. It's a lot. So hopefully we'll get to cover more of this as we learn more.
All right, thank you, Holly. Thank you, Mike. I'm scrolling up here to the beginning.
As I say, do you want to go from the bottom back up, or do you want to start from the top down?
Maybe we'll start at the bottom because some of them may have been answered. So Carrie Oh, Dave got one in. What is it? What is in it for Overdrive? What about magazines? What customers have access to all of them?
So in terms of the magazines, that is something that in terms of actually buying them, that is something that the collection management team will do. So it's not something that you'll have to like each pay your individual invoice like you did previously. That's something that would come out of that pool. In terms of what customers have access to all of them, I know that there is a way to configure that for your individual library now, and I believe that that will still be in place in terms of if you want to filter some of them out. So then there is, Carrie has here the holds account manager. We have not determined the holds ratio yet, but that would be something for that volunteer committee to be setting up, and highly recommend that you have a voice in that as well. And I know Stephanie is definitely looking for people to be active in both the conversation as well as the joining that actual team.
Right.
Okay, there is a question about Canopy. This is not including Canopy. This is, although did Overdrive purchase Canopy? They did, didn't they? Mike,
Yes,
can you speak to that?
yes, we purchased Canopy, and just like Canopy and 5 or 6 other services, Law Depot, Universal Class, Arts and Crafts. I mean, those are all part of Marketplace, and they're all an individual decision that you guys can make. So what this is all inclusive of everything that Overdrive has. You'll just have to decide on the consortium level or an advantage level what you choose within Marketplace. So Canopy is in Marketplace.
No, Canopy is not in Marketplace just yet,
sorry.
Mike.
Well,
yeah, so Canopy
sorry.
is available. That's okay, not yet. Canopy is available for integration through Libby. So that is live. So if you are a current Canopy customer and you have an Advantage account, you will be able to continue access. Well, you will continue access through Canopy anyway, but you will have additional access through Libby with Canopy. So right now, if you're a current Canopy customer, it's the same as it would be with the additional discoverability through Libby. And if you're not a Canopy customer, you can add Canopy with your Advantage account, and just like you would now as a new customer.
And with this consortium, everybody will have an Advantage account. That's actually part of the model. Is that correct in just saying that just like that, Mike?
Well, first of all, let me deflect to Karen, and I apologize for misspeaking. I do want, and this question is actually yours plus mine. Canopy will be available in the near future, though. Is that correct, Karen, or am I wrong?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be within the year available in Marketplace. So this is not something that will happen immediately.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to go on to the content credit. There have been several questions about this, and Christine, I see yours about your Advantage funds as well. Content credit, if it is not spent out prior to this, is going to go into the group pot. So that's going to be managed by that collection management team. Advantage funds, I believe they'll just go with the library as opposed to going into that group pot. But anybody that knows differently from that, please definitely chime in on that. Is in terms of the census data, we're kind of in just a tiny bit of limbo here, waiting to get some information back. The 2020 census data has not yet been certified for the public libraries, but we anticipate it soon, so that may affect, and there have been emails and things going around about that. So the answer is we don't know either, but it is an active conversation to find out the answer to that. Okay, going up again. Who will send us the form to fill out? It has been sent out by Jake, but if you did not receive one, we'll make sure that you get one.
Yeah, I sent it to all public library directors. I can resend it. If you need it, please just email me. And it's just jsphere@library.in.gov.
And so Jennifer has asked, and I'm skipping a few questions in here to get to kind of the easy ones. Hey, Stephanie. The content that you've previously purchased will go with you into the new consortium. So you will not be
Hello?
losing that. Hello?
I'm sorry to interrupt. This entire presentation has been geared towards people who are already a part of the consortium. There has been little to no explanation for members, for people who are not a part of the consortium. And so all of these details are beyond the scope of our range. Could you explain this for people who are not a member of any consortium?
Do you currently have an agreement with Overdrive to provide
yes.
e-resources? Okay, so you have the option to continue as you are, or to join the consortium, and then you would have access to that larger collection with the understanding that part of the content credit that you would not be paying a platform fee any longer, but that would be going towards content credit. The proportion of that, a proportion of that would be managed by the collection management team, a third of that, and then the 2/3 of that would be for you to deal with locally, and then you could of course go above and beyond that. You can always buy more stuff from Overdrive.
And may I just jump in as well? So for an existing standalone customer, especially one that's a smaller and may be a good option for the consortium, your current content that you already bought would move with you to an Advantage account. So you're not losing access to that. And with the idea that every member is going to have an Advantage collection, which you probably don't know what that is because you're not in a consortium, but essentially Advantage is a separate collection that's dedicated to your users. And then if the group decides that they want to then share titles that are available, they could do that as well, but your users would have priority. So you're not losing access. Anything that you've already bought would move with you.
Okay, one additional question. In the past, when our content has changed from one server to another, there are certain types of titles that have the one copy, one checkout when purchased that have since changed to an MA status. Will we lose the original nature of those digital titles with the transfer to the consortium?
That's a great question.
Yeah, if you currently have it in the original license model that you purchased, that will not change.
Okay, so
can I say something on that? You're not going from one vendor to another vendor. So we're not transferring the titles and going to the publishers for permissions. You're just moving them from one pot to another pot, okay? So that is nothing to worry about, nothing to be concerned about.
Excellent. I believe that you have helped cover my questions. I'm unsure if there are other individuals who are struggling with this same set of information who have questions that need to be addressed.
Sure,
but I will mute my microphone now.
Yeah, if they do, definitely welcome to put that into the chat. I'm going to continue on. Will our account names and account numbers change? And my assumption is that the account that they will change, but they will still be attached in some way to previous. Can you speak to that, Karen?
Sure. Yeah, I'm assuming yes. I mean, if we're establishing a new purchasing portal and marketplace tied to a separate account, there will probably be an account number update, and you'll have a different marketplace login because it'll be tied to a separate consortium, buying account.
Sherry has a question. Is the new consortium a done deal? Yes, it is. And to a previous question, what happens to the IDDC and the EIDC? Those consortiums will not exist any longer. So you'll have the option to join the new one, or you can continue on with Overdrive as a standalone library if you'd like to. And this has been the product of months of conversations and meetings. So yeah. What is advantage? And I think Karen, you did answer that pretty well. If there are any more questions about that, please put it in there. How do the current wait times compare between EIDC and IDDC? They were pretty comparable until recently. The IDDC changed some policies, and Stephanie Murphy is in here if she wants to speak up, that involved exposing or sharing advantage titles, which definitely lowered their wait times. Go for it, Stephanie.
Sure, I'd love to talk about this. And I'm really passionate about this merger, and I know there are a lot of concerns. I'm super excited about it. What we saw in our consortium was when we started paying attention and we started sharing our content, everybody benefited. So our wait times went down from about 49 days to about 30 days. And that's just with a couple of members sharing their collections. So I think that the combination of everybody sharing their Advantage collection plus the collection management team will drive down our wait times, our hold wait times even more. And that collection management team is really a core fundamental part of this process, because what that team will be doing, and again, they'll have access to those dollars, is they will be regularly, weekly, looking at those holds wait time. And right now, my ideal would be a 5-to-1 ratio for holds when they would repurchase. And that's better than what we have going on now. And then they would be looking at some of those things like hold on items that are no longer available for purchase. So sometimes you see those holds on older editions. We saw this when Bridgerton came out, and we had all these holds on the original Bridgerton titles when the newer editions were the sort of the movie tie-in titles. So that collection management team would be looking at those holds and moving them over to the newer edition. All of those sort of back end details that nobody's really managing in either consortium right now are going to be managed more effectively and without any library feeling like they have the obligation to spend their own funds on that. And that's what that pool is really about. So our hold times have gotten a lot better just with implementing a few of these things, and with the collection management team and that budget in place for them, and the sharing across the board, I really think we'll continue to see our wait times improve.
Thank you, Stephanie. Another question coming out here: how does this work for a library on Koha and not currently an Overdrive member? There are a lot of components to that question. I would encourage you, if you're interested in joining this consortium, to do so. Koha, it works well with, is like any other ILS. So depending on how you wanted them to interact, there are some levels of support to help you integrate them perhaps into your catalog, things like that. But there are the two different pieces there: systems admin for your Koha ILS, and then actually becoming a customer of Overdrive and perhaps joining this consortium. We spend significantly more on Overdrive selections each year than the consortium fee would be for a library of our size. Would we be able to select more items for an additional fee? Absolutely. You can always spend more than your content credit. You just get invoiced for that. I'm going to punt this one. We subscribe to the new classes, content available on Libby. How will that be impacted, Karen?
Who was asking that? Sorry, I just.
Christine Golden.
Okay, and if Christine Golden currently has an Advantage account with access to Universal Class, or frankly, any of the other individual suppliers, that would just move over. So there would be no change. So you would continue to have access to it. The starting point would look different in the new consortium. So no changes there, because you have access to it through your Advantage account, and we would just move it over to the new consortium Advantage account.
This is also a technical question that kind of goes into the magazine question as well. Would we be able to block titles on a local basis for student accounts, et cetera? I think that the answer is yes, but I'm not entirely sure. Mike or Karen or Holly.
That's a good question. So what do we mean by block? Because we have some options for weeding, but as many of you that are already in consortium know, when you weed at the consortium level, it weeds for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it would depend on the specific needs of what this request looks like. So we have some tools, but there's just some intricacies with weeding consortium content.
Yeah, I don't think this is about weeding. I think this is about not making things that are actively in the consortial collection discoverable for people at certain locations with certain qualifiers on their account.
Not that I'm aware of, unless there are some authentication card rules that tie to that, but that's sort of beyond my wheelhouse. So we might have to have another person with more background there help out.
Sure. What effects will this have on the autonomy of our Advantage collections? None. You have autonomy on the, there are, I say none, there is part of the memorandum of understanding which you will have access to that does have some language in it about the sharing of things, but definitely not the collection of things for your Advantage collections. There are multiple questions here about about billing, that memberships have been paid in the spring, and that was this one is in the spring, EIDC is in the fall, and so they've already paid for that. How is that going to affect those membership fees for this? Is there going to be some level of prorating, or how is that going to work? And I don't know the answer to that.
Can I speak to that?
Sure.
Okay, so again, there's two different consortiums merging for sure. There's the potential of other libraries joining. So let me answer that in two parts. Number one, the groups that are definitely coming together, we have to pick a date, okay? So no matter what day you guys do this, there's going to be someone that's going to have to merge their bill, but it's going to be fairly easy because the amounts are the same. So the amounts are totally the same. It's just the percentage that goes to content, which is an accounting issue at Overdrive. So your dollar amounts should be the same. You're just changing the dates, okay? As far as a library that is not part of those two groups, you guys can wait till your renewal date. If you leave earlier, we'll have to do some accounting and adjusting, but that would have to happen no matter what kind of change you would ever make. So the money that you have now will be moved over. Any content credits you have now will be moved over, just as the books will be moved over. So we can make those adjustments, but yes, we will have to adjust your invoices. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. I'm trying to think from both in the spring, because that would be a 2021 expenditure, fall would have been, and this new expenditure will be 2022. So I'm going to pop down here and see if there are any things more about that. When will the new consortium billing? It will likely it will be sometime in the winter of 2022. Just a little housekeeping thing here from Kelly, who said that I think that there is perhaps a typo in the agreement where it says 1/3, but then means 2/3 and has 2/3 in another place. So we'll have to look back at that. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Jake.
No, I just saw Deborah's question about how long will the LSTA grant. The state library receives about $3.3 million per year, and we use that for a whole host of things, and we'll build that into our budget to cover that fee. So it's not a year-to-year issue as far as applying for grants. It will be built into our federal funds as far as our budget goes. But that's a good question. I appreciate you asking.
Will IDL purchase, we already answered that one. The magazines, are concurrent use titles only available as audiobooks, or are some ebook titles? I'm not entirely sure about that because I haven't purchased in Marketplace in a while.
There are both. They exist. They are not terribly common, but they are a thing that happens.
So it's not dependent on the format so much as it is just on the publisher making that license model available. Will IDL be enrolled in Public Library Connect to enable my local school system to take advantage of SORA? It's a great question, Nicholas or Nick. I don't know the answer.
You should be able to participate in SORA with your schools. I don't know, I'm not familiar with IDL Connect, but as part of the consortium, you should still be able to have your schools participate in SORA and access the collection. And then if I could also answer the question about Advantage collections. So the setup for this consortium is going to be a little different than what we currently have. So if you're currently a member of IDDC or EIDC, you have two logins to Marketplace. You have one for, let me clarify, if you have an Advantage account, you have two logins. You have your consortium login and you have your Advantage Plus login. With this new model, you will only have your Advantage Plus login. So that 1/3 or the collection management team will go into the consortium account for that collection management team to spend. Your Advantage Plus is where that other 2/3 of content credit lands. So it is the expectation that participants will share their Advantage titles from day one. And part of the reason for this is that with a lot of the models that are currently being sold, like those 12-month models and the 1-year titles, it just doesn't make sense to hold on to those for your own patrons and not share them out with the consortium, because it's not an efficient use of your dollars. So for example, if I'm a small library, so if I buy a 12-month title and I hold on to that for 6 months, but I only have 2 patrons read it right away, that's really probably 4 or 5 months that nobody is using that title. So it doesn't make sense to hold on to that. And the part 2 of that is that it really does, my patrons will always go to the top of the hold list for my Advantage titles. And I think that's something that we haven't communicated with our libraries well enough. But if you have an Advantage Plus collection, which every member of this consortium will have, any title that you buy it with your Advantage Plus account, your patrons automatically get put to the top of that hold list. So it doesn't hurt to share it with other people. Plus you have that collection management team making sure that those titles are available across the board. So I think it's sort of rethinking how we look at this collection. If you're part of the consortium, the obligation is to share, because you're also receiving titles from other libraries. And then you're trusting the collection management team, and you're trusting the other libraries to do what's best for the entire consortium.
Jessica has a question about, does the option to share advantage titles apply to all titles in the collection? I'm not sure that I completely understand that question. So if somebody has a better perspective on it. My off the cuff answer would be yes, but I'm not sure what all means.
I can make a comment on what I think she might mean is some consortiums with advantage can choose not to share certain titles. They can choose not to share maybe metered access as an example, but that's more of a you guys decision. It's you need to have a memorandum of understanding of what you want to share and what you're willing to share. That's more of a consortial decision. So you could block out certain titles to share, but that's amongst you guys to decide. Okay.
I believe that answers my question. Whether or not this is like my entire collection that we share, I see no disadvantage to sharing the entire collection. I was just curious if it was individual titles that we were having to choose or reserve for our own use, or if we just, click one button and everything gets shared.
It's really easy to set up in the back end of Marketplace, the sharing. And so once we get the accounts made, we'll share out information on how to set up your share settings in Marketplace. It's a really super easy form in Marketplace.
Great, thank you.
Sue, I'm not sure if this question has been answered explicitly yet. The approximate date the new consortium will go live right now is February the 1st. But that, of course, it has to be a little bit flexible depending on stuff. I mean, intervening setup and questions and things that need to be worked out.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's why I mentioned at the beginning, if you feel comfortable in submitting your form, go ahead and do so by the end of the month. If you still need questions, that's completely understandable. And you can submit it later in January. It may just affect when we actually launch as they kind of come in, but I understand there may be questions. And then we really would like everyone to think really hard about joining and do so and ask their questions now. So, and Anita, I can resend it. I sent a form to all the directors. If you need one, I'll email you. There's a join form from Overdrive. It's a short form, and I'll send that out to you.
There have been some questions about check-in times. How much will individual libraries have a say on the policies? There has been some discussion about this. I will say what the proposed ones are at the moment, kind of, there's a default lending for ebooks of 14 days with options for 7, 14, or 21 days. Audiobooks, the default lending is 21 days with 7, 14, or 21 as options. Videos, default lending is 7 days with some options for 3, 5, or 7 days. And then magazines are the default lending for 14 days with also options for 7, 14, and 21 days. So a lot of flexibility within there. So you can either go with a default or you can have those options. I think a lot of these have been answered here. For completely new to Overdrive consortium members, when would we pay to start? 2022? Yes. Brandon, I'm going to say that I would anticipate patrons seeing maybe a day or two loss of access, just to have that in your mind. That may not happen, but it might. So just to have that possibility in your mind. Will our invoices be prorated or adjusted for the overlap before our current? You're going to take all of your content credit with you. You're not going to have to worry about, well, content credit will go with you in some form or another. It may go into the collection management team, or if it is Advantage money or Advantage Plus money, maybe handled a little bit I think that was kind of, it was addressed by Mike. I mean, it was addressed by, not kind of, it was. So it won't necessarily be prorated. It will start anew in 2022. So it would be your 2022 invoice. Is the 1/3 or 2/3 typo a problem with submitting the form? I'm going to leave that to you, Jake. There is that typo.
I've already corrected it and sent it to Jake.
Okay.
I saw
Yes,
that
I'm in
comment.
the process of mailing it out. Thank you, Mike. I'll resend it out to the public library director or listserv right now. So.
Yeah, I saw the comment and I sent it to Jake as soon as I saw it.
Spectacular. Thank you so very much. Okay. Do we have an estimate of the number of libraries that will potentially joining? Well, if we are to make, and this is an assumption, between the EIDC and the IDDC, that's over 150 libraries right there. If they all join this consortium, that is an estimate. It will be a lot. And we know that it's not just these two consortium, not just the libraries that are members as well. So will small consortiums who choose to join be folded in the same way? Essentially, it will be the same way. Sarah. If we have more questions, who should we follow up with? Christine, you can contact any of us here at the State Library. They're on this call. You can also contact Stephanie Murphy, who really is a huge brain trust for this, and also coordinating the content management.
You can also contact myself and Holly too.
Yes.
So, yeah.
When it comes to billing, I would suggest that you contact Mike and Holly, and also about the technical aspects of your marketplace account. Is that fair to say that?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Also, the standalones that are not members of consortium
Yes.
now, they're probably better suited to call and ask us different questions about how that would change things.
Absolutely.
So we are, and I'm 24/7, so you call anytime.
Yeah,
You need
if
to
anyone
sleep,
would like
Mike.
to put their contact information, Beth had mentioned that, Beth Yates, you could also reach out to your regional consultant too. But yeah, just please reach out and we'll figure out an answer.
And I see another question about libraries that don't have Overdrive now. Absolutely, you're welcome to join this group. The only caveat I'd say to that is make sure you let us know that you're new to Overdrive so we can give you extra training, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Winnie has a question about promotional things. We will put out an information that lists the libraries and that basic information. And there is a huge opportunity to do some promoting similar to what's done with Inspire and other things that libraries do that promotes this Indiana Digital Library, this new consortium, and the access that patrons can have. And that's something that we are discussing and that we will coordinate and put together. And I could see that being like a ad hoc, like a small, just one-time committee or committee that meets once in a great while to kind of provide input about what we would want as far as promoting this and do that. So.
I'm going to pop up here real quick. There's a question from Jessica. How are MARC records handled in the consortium? Of course, I'm thinking about this from two different consortial things. You should still be able to get access to MARC records if you're wanting to import those into your ILS. I know that we will continue managing them in the same way that we do for Evergreen, Indiana. So if you had not previously had access to them, you should have access to that after the PowerPoint be saved.
So the consortium content MARC records is my primary question. Do those just kind of float in their own space? Are they held by each individual library? Do we have access to the entire consortium's MARC records if we wanted to import them?
Yes.
Which would be a huge job. So we could if we wanted, but if we don't want to, we don't have to.
I'm not sure how that gets parsed out from somebody that thinks kind of in a technical line. I think it should be available to parse that out in some respects, but I'm not sure if that is an option. It may be an all or nothing. I'm not entirely sure.
In the past, we have added our Overdrive mark records to our workflows.
Mhm.
And my cataloger was curious whether or not we were going to have all of the mark records. But what I believe would be best would be if I ask her more specifically what her concerns and questions are, so that I can address this in a specific call with you.
Yeah, and I think actually this would be a better one to have a conversation with Holly or Mike about, probably Holly in this respect, about what mark records you would actually want.
Excellent. And I see that Holly's contact information is right here. I will now mute again. Thank you.
Great question, though. I'm glad that you brought up the cataloging of it.
Sure.
I saw a question.
As we come to the top of the hour, I think we're going to wrap up, but we will share the PowerPoint and the recording of this. I've sent out the form. If you need the form, please contact me. You have Mike and Holly's contact information. I know that Mackenzie had asked if you're going to be at PLA Overdrive, if you're going to be at that in March. I think it's in Portland. That's just a quick question I think we can knock off. Are you going to have
Yeah, we are there. We're in there in person, if all goes well.
Okay,
But
good.
we're planning to be there in Portland. It's March 22nd, I think.
I think so.
So we're excited. And we'll be sharing our booth number and all that, but we usually go big at PLA, so come see us.
Okay.
I'm gonna make a comment too, and I'm praying that we are able to do this with the coronavirus, but we traditionally have a very big party at PLA, and I strongly recommend, if we do, that you attend.
I do recommend Overdrive's parties that they have at conferences. They're pretty nice.
Well, thank you to everyone who's taken some time out of your day to be here today. As I said, this is a real opportunity, I think, for Indiana libraries. There may be a few small bumps in the road, but I think we'll be able to get through them, and we will continue to communicate regularly, and if necessary, set up another webinar as we go along. I could see maybe potential to do so in January as we get a little further along. I'll send the form out. We'll send out the webinar, and we'll continue. And I also want to thank Overdrive for working with us today and on this consortium. But again, hope everyone has a great weekend, and we're going to go ahead and wrap this up.